Hey everyone, welcome back to Behind the Art. As you guys can see, I have Brian Brinkman on today with me on episode 41. I'm super excited to have you on. We'll let everyone pop in the chat before we get started with anything too crazy. Hey Hubber Snacks, thanks for saying hi with that awesome emoji. um, Thanks for coming on today, Brian. I'm
Well,
super
thanks for
excited to
having
have
me.
you. Of
Yeah,
course.
this is awesome.
I feel like this was a long time coming. Like I've always, I've in the back of my mind, I'm like, I need to DM Brian. I need to get him on the show. And like I keep like seeing your work on Twitter, which admittedly I haven't been on Twitter a lot lately. I've just been working so much, but
That's a good
um,
thing.
yeah, I'm like every time I'm like I need to DM him. I need to DM him, and then I'm finally glad that we locked this down because I see your work everywhere. You have like your hands in everything in such a cool way. So I'm excited to just get to talk to you about your work and what you're doing in the community. So thanks for coming out.
Yeah, no, totally. And, same. I've been a fan of this show since I started back in like January or February of last year. Your show was like such a gateway for me to learn about the platforms and different artists and just the NFT community in general. It was
Oh,
such a resource that I used very heavily.
awesome! Thank
all the
you.
all the best people are on the show, so I'm honored to be a part of it.
Oh, that means a lot to me. Thank you. And I mean, so this is 41 episodes, so a couple more guests than that because I had some shows where two people were on.
Hmm.
And it seems like I'm like, really? I only have 41 episodes, and I'm like, that's actually a lot. You know what I mean? Like that's we've got a lot down, still a lot more to go. And I appreciate that you watch the other shows because they are all really special in different ways, obviously, because they vary so much by each guest that comes on, and they're a bit of a personal mark in history for them. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Hey Matt Kane, hey Rung Benjamin, nice to see you both
Hey, Matt
here.
Kane. Well, how do I see the chat? I guess I got to pull up the YouTube channel, huh?
Yeah, the live chat's next to the YouTube, so feel free and pull that up. And I am, now that we have people popping in, as you guys know, if you've been watching these shows, it'll be really quick, but I do have a sponsor for today's show. So I'll just be talking about them very briefly. And it's actually really cool. I told you guys the last few episodes I'm being sponsored by a group or with a group called Metacast, which is really awesome. They're basically connecting creators in the space or content creators in the space with really cool projects that uh, want to be sponsored on different shows like this. So I'm super fortunate to be teamed up with them in that way. And then this month's sponsor is really cool. It's Avagache. You guys have probably heard of it. Pop in the chat if you have, or if you haven't, let me know. But in the YouTube description box, I have their Discord linked, their website linked, and I'm going to pull up their website too here in just a sec and tell you a little bit about them. So their website's really cute. It's kind of basic, but it's kind of in a cool way because all of the Avagaches are made with pixels, sort of kind of how like CryptoPunks are. So you can learn more about how to get ghosts, their token. You can get verified, learn more as like their white paper and light paper. And they are going to launch on Matic. I think they had a tiny setback with Ethereum just because of all the craziness that's been going on that we all know. So they'll be launching on Matic. So keep an eye out for that. They also have, here's their Twitter, and they're really active with their Medium posts. So you can stay up to date with everything on their media post. And Avagaches are an on chain collectible. And they're all ghosts, and they're staked with Aave's interest generating tokens. So it's really interesting. You actually get to earn rewards by collecting the Avagaches and leveling up through the series, which is interesting, and also collecting more rare Avagaches. So it's really interesting that it combines DeFi and NFTs in a special way with these avatars. And by collecting the fact that you get to earn their token as well and potentially either make back what you collected or make even more. So it's definitely an interesting concept. Check it out. And let me know if you guys have any questions on it, and definitely go follow them in their Discord and Twitter as well. And we will get back to the show. Thanks for listening to those guys. Oh, you've heard of it, Hover Snacks. Cool. Awesome.
It's pretty cool. I love that concept.
Yeah.
If only we were making money off our Tamagotchis when we were children.
Seriously. And it's like, why not? Right now is the time to just like innovate and push the boundaries. Like, why not try to tie in really cool things like that and see how it goes? Hey, Crypto Dream. Awesome. Okay, let's get started with everything. So I always try to think of the first time with whoever I have on the show, the first time that I experienced their artwork. And I'm sure that I know for a fact I've experienced your artwork on Twitter before this moment. But one of the big moments that I remember with your work was going through Crypto Voxels with Pranksy and having him give me a tour of your candy shop. And as I mean, everyone did an awesome show on there, but I'm gonna out him a little bit here. He was like, "Don't tell anyone, but this is my favorite build." So, but I mean, you had such a cool experience in there, and as a lot of us know in here, Crypto Voxels is an amazing community. And it has its elements that are really easy to work with and not so easy to work with, like perfecting everything when you're building in there. So it was really cool to experience your artwork in a 3D format, walking through the world versus just on paper. And it's still, everything had your style. I knew it was your work. So I thought you did a really beautiful job. And that's sort of the first time that I like fully experienced your work, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I always try to think of that when I have people come on the show.
That's so cool. Yeah, that was such a fun, the Pranksy Land idea. It was such a fun event because he basically just gave everyone free reign to build whatever they wanted, as long as it wasn't just a simple, box gallery. Mm-hmm. And so I think, I was interested in trying Crypto Voxels, but I was afraid to like buy a plot of land because I didn't know how the building worked and all that kind of stuff. And so when Pranksy offered this opportunity, I was like, yeah, totally. And then I just jumped in and I just loved playing around in it. And then I looked at, some of the people that I found to be inspiring, like a lot of Money's work, that stuff he builds in there feels like a store or a building that lives in the world. Mm-hmm. And that would, be a part of this universe. And so I really got into this idea of like, what kind of business could I put into this world that would fit into this metaverse? And so that's where kind of the candy shop idea came from. And then from that, it was like building the candy shop and then, building artwork about candy that I could fill the walls with. And every time I loaded in and started building, I would come up with more little ideas and add little bits here and there. And over the course of like 2 or 3 months, it took full shape. And then it was really fun to everyone to walk around and check it out.
Oh yeah, and it takes much longer than you think. Or when you go into it, you're like, yeah, I'll spend this many hours on it, and then it's like, oh wow, I spent this many hours on it. I had that same feeling with stuff that I've built in there at least. But yeah, it was such a cool piece. And I like
it's all moving the decimals around.
Exactly. Yeah, and thank God. I mean, before Ben implemented that like nice panel where you can like slightly move things by decimals, like it was a clusterfuck before that. So and like nothing ever would line up. Like that was, you had to like write special code, and like Spidey was writing code for me in the background because you couldn't do anything by hand. And I'm sure it's just going to continue to improve.
Totally. I can show it.
Let's walk through it, and then we'll go back to the beginning. Since I brought that up anyways, I'd love to show it, and then we'll start at the beginning after that.
Mask on me. Ready for the show now?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. You have to send me a screenshot of that later, please.
All right. So it was kind of based on old candy shops, especially, and the fact that it was in Frankfurt, the district. I kind of built it around that idea. And so.
Oh, I love this entry part. This is so.
And so it was fun to like figure out how you could move stuff around. And like, since then I've figured out new techniques and stuff, but this was just a fun way to experiment and figure out how to like take like this piece of art I made for Super Rare and then build it
Yeah.
into an installation room. And so I got really into this idea of seeing installations. I think, Matt Kane was doing some stuff with his pieces where they were kind of breaking out into 3D
Oh my
space as
gosh,
well in
he is
crypto voxels.
so
And so
cool. Yeah.
it was just fun to like see how you could expand on these ideas, and then taking old art and figuring out ways to like kind of make it feel like it would live in this world.
And I love this front area that you keep passing by. The little like glass box with the candy in it
Oh
and
yeah.
it changes. It's so cool. I mean, you did
So
an
yeah,
epic job on this, and even the colors changing behind in that front area. I mean, it's such a cool place.
yeah. And I saw they're going to add satellite thing, which is nice because I kind of built it to be like very symmetrical and look nice from
Yeah,
above. So yeah, and I got Fabiano's Claude right above it, which is really excellent too.
so cool. Yeah, this was a really cool experience, and I thought it brought a lot to crypto voxels, especially when Gangnam was like the really one really like sick full community. There's obviously like amazing plots all over the place, but it was nice to have this build up in that area for sure.
Totally. Yeah, it was really fun.
I
And
love
then
that.
I kind of, you want me to continue, or did you want to?
Oh, go for it. Yeah.
I was going to say I kind of continue this idea with my next build where I had a
Oh
nifty
yes.
gateway drop based on this cloud collection. And so I built this and kind of expanding on what I had learned with that one as a way to show the pieces I had built for this collection.
Oh,
And
this looks
similar.
so cool. It doesn't even look like crypto voxels in there, in a good way. Not in a
Yeah,
bad way.
it's really fun. Like, I get lost in it at times where you start building and then you look at the time and you're like, oh no.
Yeah, the shadows make a huge difference.
Oh yeah, that that add-on, the upgrade they gave to it
Yeah,
really changes it. And it was fun I got to create this wearable so that people that signed the guest book got it. And it's been really fun to see like people walking around in the world wearing the
yeah,
cloud.
totally.
I don't know if I can, oops, there it is.
So we can. Oh,
So
oh, yep.
I
Oh,
love that
that's
you can
cool.
combine wearables in
Oh,
crypto voxels.
same.
So now I got 3 of them on my head now.
That's amazing. That is awesome. I love crypto voxels and what it does. And actually, Hubbard Snacks earlier said, I just learned about the WHIP meetup that's on Thursdays in crypto voxels. The WHIP meetups are amazing. I was like, they're crazy packed. I
Yeah.
remember we were going to like I remember going walking up to one when I didn't even know what it was, and there were like 8 people there. And then Matthew was like, hey Josie, like since you're here, do you want to like talk about what you're working on? I was like, sure. And then it just like it blew up, right? Like it just went crazy, which is so cool to have there because it's such a strong community and they're just making. I mean, hats off to the work in progress crew and what they're doing there.
Yeah, it's been
Um,
expanding so much this year. I love that they've
oh
added
yeah.
musicians to it too.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really awesome. Just sometimes I just have it playing while I'm at work as just the
Yeah.
musicians performing. It's fun to just have in the background.
Totally. It's also nice in this like lockdown era to feel like you're going up to some sort of meetup, whether it
Definitely.
be virtual or not. Cool. Okay, so let's do a little bit of backtracking and then we're going to keep going. And I love that we
Hmm.
just showed some of the art at the start because it helps, for some people that might not, I'm sure everyone on here has seen your art, but if they haven't, it helps sort of keep in mind for the rest of the show too. But I would love to hear a little bit about your background and how you just got started being a creative. And you do so many creative things in your day job, behind like with your art here. Like you are so multi-talented. So I would love to hear like where that started and sort of where you are now.
Well, I would say the beginning of it started when I was in high school. I was taking graphic design courses, and I was experimenting a lot with making Flash animations for sites like Newgrounds and stuff like that. But I was using what was then called Adobe Live Motion, which is kind of like the precursor to Adobe After Effects. And so I was kind of learning that kind of timeline-based animation. And so at the time I was debating whether I wanted to be a graphic designer or an animator or filmmaker. And I got accepted into some art schools for each of those, but someone gave me the advice that if you learn animation, you learn the entire process of filmmaking, plus you learn how to draw. And so I took that advice and I went to school in Philadelphia, University of the Arts, for traditional animation. And so learned that process. But once I got out of school, working in animation is a mixed bag. It's hard to like land right into it. And so I kind of found work doing motion graphics. And so that kind of pulled back in the graphic design aspect of a lot of what I was learning. And so I kind of took all those things together, and I hopped around from a few jobs working in, fashion advertising to toy commercials to music videos. And then eventually I worked on some animated television series, or I worked on some MTV television series. And then about, I'd say 5 years into that, I started working in late night television. And so I started working at Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, and then which became The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And I've been there for about 6 years now.
Wow. Yeah, that's some time. So was it through MTV that you kind of got connected with like other TV? I don't know how this industry works. So,
well, it is a lot of working with people, and then they go to another job and they bring you on. And so with the Fallon stuff, I knew people that worked there, and I had filled in for them when they were off, taking like a week off. I'd fill in for them from time to time. And so when a spot eventually opened up, I had already kind of worked in the system, and they knew me. And so they brought me on.
Okay, that's awesome. And so you've been there for 6 years. Like how did your role, I guess, has it transformed a lot over time? Do you do a little bit of everything? Like what are you doing there?
Yeah, so my role there is a graphic artist. I work with a team of 3 other graphic artists, and basically we create everything from the show's packaging to monologue jokes to intros. I can pull up some examples to give a better idea, but let's see. So it varies. But it's a way for me to try out different styles, learn different techniques, and it's really fun to start every day with a new list of things to work on. So because the news changes every day, so you are presented with a different challenge of create something in this style, or create a joke based on today's news. And so it's fun to collaborate with the writers and producers, and kind of every day is a new fresh slate.
And you have to do these items pretty fast then, if it's all obviously based off of that day's news. It's like the turnaround is pretty quick.
For sure. Yeah, it's pretty much we start in the morning and it airs by the afternoon or tapes by the afternoon. So everything's very fast. But luckily I work with a really talented team of other artists, and we all collaborate really well, and we get it done.
That's amazing. Such a cool, like I was saying before this stream, like I don't know anyone that works in television, but I guess like if you start to know a couple people, maybe you know a lot more. So it's like you either know a lot or none, but I don't know anyone. So it's pretty cool to hear.
I think more and more will join the crypto art community as time goes on. I think
nice.
I'm starting to see a few people. I know someone that worked on Conan O'Brien just joined Super Rare recently. So
cool.
I think it'll be, I think there'll be more motion graphic artists continuing to join, especially, all these Instagram artists are bringing more people in.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's a great transition. I would love to know how you initially heard of crypto, and then how you started learning about NFTs and decided to tokenize your own work.
Yeah. Well, I'd heard about crypto back when I was working at MTV, like 5 or 6 years ago, and I tried to make an account to buy some, and it thought I was in Japan, and so I had to like show my driver's license to prove I wasn't, and then I was like, I don't trust this, and so I never bought in, which I should have. But then down the road, about a year ago, artist I'm a big fan of named Killer Acid, I saw him posting his work on Super Rare, and he's I own his physical work. I'm a big fan of his, and I was like, well, I admire this guy. He must know something I don't. So I looked into it, and I was confused at first, as I think most people are. But then I kind of dug around for a few weeks to kind of see what was happening and
Yeah.
what is this? What is Ethereum? Because I knew about Bitcoin and I'd heard of Ethereum, but I didn't really understand how it was related to art and what an NFT was. And so as I started to kind of wrap my head around that, I started workshopping some ideas of GIFs that I thought might be fun to submit and see what happens. And so then I made my submission video, which is uncomfortable but and required.
Yeah.
And and then a couple weeks later they accepted me, and then by I think middle of February of last year I got my first GIF on Super Rare, which I can probably pull up.
Yeah, let's see it. It's cool to kind of see the history of at least when the NFT work started.
And so I think the beginning of my crypto art stuff was more traditional animation based, so it was kind of this looping thing, but I got really into using these colors, and that has kind of been the through line with most of my work since, where I was kind of trying to find myself early on and figure out what I was going to do. It eventually started taking shape, and then I started experimenting with trying to do more three-dimensional stuff.
Yeah.
And then trying
I
to figure
love
out
that
ways to
wired one.
combine the 2D with the 3D. And so it's been fun to like try new things. And then a couple months ago I started getting more into the darker backgrounds, and it's been an evolution for sure. But like my more recent one, this is kind of all about me saying yes to too many projects probably.
Oh
So
yeah, I know
it's
that
me just
feeling.
trying to sort it all out. But
That's
then it's
exactly
also
how I
fun to
look.
like, yeah. And so I'm also, especially when quarantine happened, I kind of made an effort I wanted to learn new techniques, wanted to spend this time I had at home, not commuting as much, doing more tutorials and learning new things. And so that kind of pushed me to get better at 3D.
Mm.
And so it's been a fun ride. And like this one, like the wires are actually like, that was me trying to learn how to do wire string dynamics and 3D and stuff like that.
I
So
love that one. That's a really cool one.
yeah, so like this one I really love just because it combines my 2D animation with the 3D
Yeah.
aspect. Even though the 3D is subtle, I think
But you
that's
can definitely tell. You can definitely tell the way like
yeah.
the shadows and everything moves. Like it does. The wires do look 3D, and I love the 2D the 2D guy on it. It looks really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
And this one is called Wired, right?
yeah.
Okay,
This
okay.
was me at the beginning of quarantine. That's why I have the mask on,
Yes.
because I felt pretty isolated at first, where I was like, I feel like I'm just sitting in my computer all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Hover Snacks asked, and sorry, I hope I'm saying it right, and your name right. I think I am. Correct me if I'm not. I'd like to know more about the combination of coding and crypto art. Do you do coding with your crypto art?
I don't, but
Okay.
recently I've collaborated with my friend Manny Morales, and he is an excellent coder because I work with him at Saturday Night Live, and he works. I've known him since college, and he's really into workflow coding for After Effects, and so he's already got kind of this like visual coding in his mind. And so I kind of teamed up with him for art blocks, and he's kind of teaching me a little bit about coding right
Mm-hmm.
now. But he's on a certain point I can't keep up with him.
Yeah.
But
At some point, it's like, is your time more valuable? Continue like which way? You know what I mean? Because you can only learn
yeah,
so much.
I definitely
Um,
made the mistake of learning ActionScript when I was younger, and
okay.
that is it's like a dead language now.
Okay.
It's like
Okay. Yeah, I
Latin.
have never heard of it. So, also, Hopper Snacks, I asked, have you checked out Matt Cain's work? And you said not yet. You should definitely check out Matt Cain's work. He is one of, I think, the best example in the space that I can think of with combining code and art.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
yeah, you should absolutely check out his work. It's on multiple platforms, Super Rare and Async mainly. But yeah, check that out. And you should also watch the show I did with him because he talks a bit about it too.
Yeah.
Um,
The more I dive into Matt's work, the more my mind is blown.
Same.
The fact that you can zoom in almost infinitely and see new details, it's amazing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I do that constantly with this work. Zoom in and I'm like, what do I see here? And then zoom out and I'm like, what do I see here? It really changes the experience depending on which pocket you're looking at or which like magnify like you're looking at with this work. So,
Yeah,
um,
my buddy Manny, who I'm collaborating on the art blocks with, I had sent him Matt Kane's work like earlier this summer. I'm like, look what you could be doing.
totally. So I would love to hear. I mean, you have so much coming up. I would love to hear a little bit about what you can share with what you have coming up. Don't feel
Yeah.
like you have to overshare, but whatever you feel comfortable with.
Well, the most immediate things are this Saturday I'll be releasing an art blocks project called Nimbuds, which is taking this idea of my Nifty Gateway clouds and then combining it with almost like taking ideas from the CryptoKitties world where you get these kind of characters that are randomly generated. And so me and Manny really wanted to kind of see how much personality we could get with a simple vanilla JavaScript code. And so it's been really fun to kind of like build that up and see what kind of personalities we get out of it, what kind of randomness we can get out of it. And that'll be a fun thing to see roll out because I don't know what it's going to look like. I
Yeah.
hope they all look pretty fun.
So how
But
many is
that's the exciting part, I guess.
yeah, no, absolutely. That's it's like it's also I feel like whenever I think of like the generative stuff, I'm like, oh, I if there's one I really like, is it weird if I buy it from the market to try to like get it for myself? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah,
the
here's a little teaser of some of the random outputs.
awesome. Oh my gosh, this is so
And so
cool.
they, you get different wires each time. You get different cloud shapes. The eyes, the pupils, the mouths, they're all
This is so
totally
cool.
random generation. And then we're gonna throw in a couple random weird things as well, but we're trying to keep those a little more secret.
Okay,
And the
so do
people
you
get hyped
yeah, do
and
you
they
want
see
to
it
talk
happen.
since Art Blocks is like relatively new and is doing amazing things, do you want to talk a little bit about that partnership and like what they're doing and why it
Yeah.
makes sense for you to do something with them?
Yeah, so art blocks falls into this idea of on-chain art, which is something that a lot of the community has been pushing for a long time and trying to figure out ways to incorporate it that isn't, you know, extremely expensive. But the idea is that the artwork is created entirely in code, and then that code could then technically, I'm going to sound really dumb, but the
That's
code
okay.
is embedded into the blockchain code, and that way you could theoretically recreate it forever. It's not hosted on a server like a lot of the NFT marketplaces are,
Right.
or
It's written
IPFS type
into
stuff.
the contract basically, like the actual
Exactly.
like where to put what, part of the art is written
Yeah.
into the contract is from what I understand of it at
Yeah.
least.
So yeah, and so I think, you know, it's fun to think of both that aspect and the generative aspect, and art blocks kind of combines both of those ideas together.
Yeah. And for you, when you were creating Nimbuds with them, did you feel like did it give you a different perspective? Because typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, typically a lot of your work is one of ones.
Hmm.
So did it give you a different perspective or idea? Obviously, these are one of ones as well, but it's part of a full collection.
Yes.
So what do you think about that aspect?
I've it's something I've thought about, and I talked to LuxPre about it because he had done an, a release on Art Blocks, I think 2 or 3 releases ago,
Hmm.
where he kind of recreated his art look as well, and that was one of the inspirations behind mine. And when I saw what he was doing, I was like, oh, this is something that can be done, which I always kind of thought most of the generative art was kind of glitchy or blocky kind of stuff. Um, and so I worry about the scarcity aspect to an extent, but I also see it as a different type of art, because like I'm not painting or hand making these pieces. I'm just kind of working to help them form. And so I don't know if they fall into the same necessarily one of one categories as my like super rare Nifty Gateway art, because those are pieces that I have full control over the final output, where these are something that kind of lives on its own. And so I do see them as a different form of art. And so I hope that they don't necessarily correlate in the same space of value.
No, I totally get what you're saying. It's more of like a collectible, like within a collection. It's a
Yeah.
collection, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily. I agree with what you're saying, but it's definitely interesting to see, artists that are used to making one of ones do something that is more of like this full collection and generative. It's just so different in a really
Yes.
exciting way at the same time, especially with there's a purpose why you're doing this, especially with having things actually stored on chain, which is much different. And we can get into that in different streams because I think I'll talk about it in my AMA. But a lot, as some of you know, some of you don't know, when you're getting NFTs from platforms, really you're dependent on the platform staying alive for your NFT to be visible. With something that's stored on chain, then anyone can call that smart contract to tell you what SVG goes where and what goes here to recreate the piece, which is not what happens on a lot of platforms. So it's a totally interesting, really important topic for a lot of people, on-chain art and on-chain everything else, metadata and all of that stuff. So I think it's really interesting that Art Blocks is doing that, and it's amazing that they are collaborating with artists, like yourself to make that happen and get more education around it within the community. So
Yeah, totally.
hey,
Yeah, I
Jim.
think a lot of the, oh yeah, Jim's the on-chain master.
I know. As
I
soon as
learned most of it from him.
yeah, he doesn't pop up in the chat until he hears on chain, and then he's there. Okay, hey Lander. Um,
Jim's my first collector. He has the first super rare
no,
piece.
I thought I saw that on there. That's so cool. In his vault. I love that. That's part of your name, Jim. Jimmy Vault. Wrong Bedroom asked, do you use any traditional mediums to make work, or is it all done digitally, or a combination of both?
That's a good question. I have made traditional stuff in the past, paintings and stuff, and I actually have I don't know if I can show it here, but I do like pop culture gallery work where I do these
Cool.
three-dimensional pieces that are made out of animation cell layers essentially.
No
And
way.
so you kind of see how it works there
Oh, I
and
can
the
see
depth
it.
of it.
So,
So it's like so the
so is
way
it like
I do that
hundreds
is
of like papers or like clear papers stacked on top of
yeah,
each
so I
other?
basically take actually I could probably pull up an example. I take I draw them digitally and then I
Mm.
print them out and then I paint the back of them so that there's a bit of a hand painted aspects to kind of mimic the technique of 3D animation cells. And so
What is that called? That thing that you just showed me. This
I
reminds
call
me
it
so much of
I call it a 3D cell. I
Okay.
don't I but essentially it's like I'm taking animation cells and then I divide them up on layers with I
Cool.
make these little wood frames and stuff and they're kind of built that way. And so
That reminds me so
prior to
much of Matt Kane's physical work that he showed on screen too, with the layers.
totally. Yeah, no, totally. That when I saw Matt's work, I was like, oh, we're in the same headspace. But yeah, so before I got into crypto, I was doing a lot of these pop culture art gallery shows out in LA, and I still do them occasionally. And they're a fun way to like try different styles, whether it's these 3D pieces or screen prints or toys or different things. And they're basically all these group shows where like, hey, we're going to do a show about Nintendo. And so everyone can make a piece about a Nintendo game. And so it's kind of a fun way to like direct a bunch of artists to be creative and they don't have to overthink about it too much. And so it's a lot of making like cult movie type stuff. And so that was
Mm.
kind of what I was doing. That was one of my creative outputs that I was doing for about the last 4 or 5 years. But now it's like then no one can go to the galleries and see these in 3D pieces in person. So it's kind of a real bummer. It's
Yeah.
like no one can really experience them how they're meant to be seen. But
Right.
yeah, so that's been a fun way to kind of like take those ideas and bring them into crypto art in different ways, whether it's bringing it into like kind of programmable art, or maybe bringing them into 3D AR pieces. And so I'm trying to figure out ways to kind of bring those techniques into my work. But I think you can see in my 2D pieces, there's still a lot of like using the shadow box frames and using drop shadows and stuff. So there's some connections there still.
That's really cool to be able to see like different aspects of what you've done in the past like come through your work even now still. I
Yeah.
think that's super unique to be able to see that. Wrong Bedroom said, "Wow, that's so cool." I think when you held up that art piece that you had laying there,
Cool.
thank you for having that on hand. You
Oh,
really
no
thought of
problem.
everything. That was awesome. um, Awesome. And feel free if you guys have more questions, keep popping them in there. So I also someone posted a question on Twitter about they were asking about a collab. Do you have I don't know if you can talk about that. Do you have other exciting collabs or things coming up too that you want to talk about?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So some of the things I have coming up, well, I did a collaboration with Decentraland that me, Ferocious, Jonathan Wolf, Jose Delbo, and I think someone else. We got to design and collaborate with a costume outfit, and that was really cool. And I think there's going to be a second part to that, which I'm excited to dive into soon. And then I'm also collaborating with a choir named Verdigris Ensemble, which is a Dallas-based choir, and I'm working with Sam Bruckman, who's works for Async Art, and we're going to kind of take. I'm working with there's a composer named Nicholas as well. We're going to take all these different aspects of the choir and the composer and the story that it's based on, and try and create this multiple plane collaboration that can do a whole bunch of weird things. And we're still kind of playing around with that, but I'm excited to be diving into that. And I got to meet the choir last night, and that was really cool.
No way. Dude,
And then
you're all over the place in such a good way. Like
that's
I
the fun
keep
part about this
I
crypto
know.
world. It's just there's so many avenues to be creative, and
So
I'm just
many.
constantly excited about it. The other thing I have coming out, I think it'll be coming out Friday, is partnered with Digital X, if you've heard of them. They're going to do this thing called fractional garment ownership. And so basically, this background you see behind me is one of them, where it's an infinite pattern that can be used in garments.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm collaborating with this fashion designer named Lorena Bello. And so she's taking some of my designs and making them into these insane fashion outfits. And so I think that'll hopefully start rolling out soon, but I've seen some previews and they look insane. They're so cool.
I love this. It's crazy because so first of all, I mean, we've talked about this so many times on this show that like crypto art doesn't wait for anyone. Like the innovation is just like one on top of the other on top of the other, and you are keeping up with it. Like I'm just going to recap the things you just named. Like you're talking about like these crazy like garments with like your art being patterns on them, like the Decentraland wearables, so like you're creating stuff for avatars, working with a choir to do audio stuff, doing on-chain generative art. Like it's so cool because you have been able to take advantage of what collaboration and what the space is offering in the exact way that you should be.
Thanks. Yeah.
And it's not easy to do. So hats off to you for juggling so many different things and being willing to just experiment and go for it. Because all of those projects sound insanely cool.
There's some cool ones.
Yeah, I keep thinking about back to the art piece that you showed with when you're like, oh, I take on too many projects and like everything jumping around.
Yeah, that was definitely made while I was creating a list of all the things I had to do.
Yeah.
Which I've only gotten about halfway through so far. So, but yeah, there's some, the amount of different ideas in crypto art, like it just opens up more possibilities everywhere you look. And it's like I always call it a rabbit hole because it really is. You go, well, look at this platform. I want to figure out how to utilize that. And like, whether it's, I'm looking at, I'm working on some stuff for other platforms now. And it's like, how do I make something for that platform that feels unique for that? So it doesn't fight with these other things I made for this thing. And so I'm always trying to like look at the platform, figure out what its strengths are and how to kind of build something for that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really, really special that you're doing that and you're being very thoughtful about each thing that you do, which I think is amazing and not easy to do. So, like I said, I mean, I'm just kudos. I can't wait to see all of these things come out, especially with your take and your art um, depicted in all these different ways. So that's super exciting. I would love to, this is sort of a weird question, but just because you are so involved and you know so much, I would love to hear from, the start to now being in NFT art and in the crypto space. What is something that you think you've really enjoyed and has like changed your life in this space? And what is something that you'd leave behind and you hate about this space?
Okay. Um,
Kind of weird question. I've never asked
I
it,
think,
but
well, what I really love is the community. I think diving into the discords or the work in progress meetups and getting to connect with all these people, um, doing these gallery shows before I did crypto, someone would buy my art. I wouldn't know who, and it would just disappear forever. Now NFTs allow me to connect with the collectors and the other artists in a way that I never got to do before, especially because the shows I were doing, were across the country.
mm,
And so I think that aspect of connection is something that from the beginning hooked me because, and right a month after I started minting on Super Rare, I became locked down. Um, and so just the amount of people that were creating, and since then it's exploded. Like
oh yeah.
every week I'm meeting a new artist that wants advice, and I'm excited to give it to them because it's such a fun thing to see someone grow in the space. And so I think that's my favorite aspect. Least favorite, I don't know. I think probably trying to understand the money aspects of what the valuation of things are. That part is difficult and not very, it makes me self-conscious in a way that I don't always enjoy, where I'm like,
Mm.
am I pricing this right? Am I being, thoughtful with it? Am I keeping my value of my work up? It's something I probably overthink, but it's important. But I also find that to be like detrimental to the creative aspects.
Mm. That's interesting. That I've heard some artists definitely talk about it and talk about should we be pricing in USD terms? Should we be pricing in ETH terms? That's hard to keep up with. Are we repricing work? Which obviously in some cases that means gas fees every time you reprice something. So it
Yeah.
is it is definitely a challenge that I think a lot of people deal with. And having that open conversation and knowledge of what works for your collector base is a huge thing, but it's not easy to do. That's for
No.
sure. So, yeah, I think that's a great answer. And not only that, I mean, with Ethereum and obviously like the big, or maybe I guess I'll ask for you in particular. Have you noticed with the rise in Ethereum prices and obviously Ethereum gas and everything, has it changed your workflow at all because of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I noticed in August the influx of collectors and artists increased a lot of valuations.
Mm-hmm.
And then, these big, huge sales started to, going back and looking at when I started, the biggest sales were like $5,000. Now they're
Oh yeah.
in the hundreds of thousands of
Yeah.
dollars. So it's amazing to see like what the overall value of NFT art has grown to. But at the same time, there is a correlation I've noticed that I think everyone's noticed that when the market's going up, no one wants to spend that money, which makes sense. But I think during those times, I've found it's been best to kind of like hunker down and collaborate and do these projects and not worry about necessarily selling the work right now. And so I think that, and then it's also affected me in that I'm more inclined to do this stuff like art blocks where I can sell pieces at a much lower cost and get my work into collectors that wouldn't be willing to spend super rare type money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that to be a good balance.
Yeah, I think there is. I think that's really well said, and there is something special about finding a balance for different collectors for sure. I've always, I mean, people know I can count my one of ones on one hand. Like I do
Yeah.
editioned work, and I love doing editioned work. I think it's cool because it's nice that multiple people can collect a full set, or they can all experience the piece and it's not only in one person's hands.
Yeah.
So I think something like what you're doing with art blocks is a cool way to explore that, and have a lot of people excited about a specific piece or a variation of a piece or whatever it is. And yeah, no, I think it's a really cool way to explore that. And I always try to encourage other artists to just feel it out. You don't have to
Yeah.
do one thing that makes sense for one platform. Like you said, you're working with so many different platforms and figuring out what works well in each
Yeah.
circumstance. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and like I have done some editions in the past, whether it was the Nifty Gateway drop or some rareable edition pieces. I did editions of 10. I've kind of slowed down on rareable because it seems to be, people don't seem to be enjoying it right now. I enjoy going there and buying work, but it makes me nervous at the moment because it's just a bit of a mess to look at the page and understand what's happening and like finding stuff on that site. But I would say I collect more stuff on Rarible than any of the other sites, just because
Interesting.
there's amazing stuff on there, and it's you're able to find people before they get accepted onto these other platforms.
Right. That is interesting. Yeah, that's I didn't personally use Rarible, but except I think maybe I bought one thing on there. But just to try it out. But it is interesting to see why people really like Rarible, and hopefully there are other places that can sort of implement the things that people really like about it across other platforms so that it can be, just feedback for everyone. Um, yeah. Oh, Lander said that's how I found Null on
Yeah, Noel's
Rarible.
awesome. Yeah, I mean and it's the people you see on Rarible that take off end up landing on Known Origin or Maker's
Mm-hmm.
Place or Super Rare pretty quickly. So it's a good launching off point for new artists for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Wrong Bedroom asked, does Brian's work start with a solid concept before he begins a piece?
Sometimes, and I write a lot about it on my sent page about kind of where the ideas come from. Sometimes they start with a sketch. Sometimes they just start with me diving into like After Effects and playing around and experimenting, and then things kind of come about. But for instance, let me see, I can pull up like that piece that I showed earlier.
Also, I would love, after you're showing this piece or while, I would love to hear what programs you're using as well.
Yeah, so a lot of times I use a mix of, so these are kind of like examples of where the idea came
Cool.
from. And so then this was kind of where I was kind of playing around with this idea of like a brain that was divided into pieces kind of moving around. And then I was kind of doing some sketching. And so that was done in like Procreate. And then I did some animation tests to play around with that. And then it eventually moved into, this part's done in what used to be called Flash. Now it's called Adobe Animate.
Mm-hmm.
And then these lines are all done in After Effects. And then I kind of piece it together, and these are done in After Effects. And so it's usually a combination of a few different softwares, but I would say like Photoshop, After Effects, Cinema 4D, and Animate are like my four go-tos. But I'm also trying to dive in and learn how to do like VR sculpting or Substance Painter, and like I'm always trying to like pick up new software when I can.
Yeah. That I love that breakdown. Not that's just so cool. Not a lot of artists do that, and it's it's helpful to just see what you're doing, but then it also gives so much more value to the piece to see the behind the scenes of it. So that's really cool. Do you do a
Thanks. Yeah.
breakdown like that for all of your pieces?
Yeah, so all of my, well, except for like I started I think around like the fifth piece
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Um, and so I try to some of them are, most of them are on Scent. I did one or two that were super rare editorials where I kind of just break down, but you can kind of see like where the idea starts and like how I created the hand and animate,
Yeah.
and then I figured out how to replicate it using particles, and I did this technique, and then I kind of layered it multiple times to get to the final one. And
Wow.
so it's fun to, you know, when you release a piece, it's fun to get it out there, but it's also exciting to kind of revisit how you did it. And so, yeah, they all kind of start at different points. Let's see, does this one have some? This was a collaboration I did with MLibT, where he has this like crypto skateboard thing. So that you can see like a little bit of 3D in there with a mix of animation, traditional stuff. We can kind of see like the evolution of it.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I love these breakdowns. And I love that
Thanks.
also.
Yeah,
I mean, oh, go ahead.
oh no, yeah, I found early on that like like with your show, like finding out more behind the work was really helpful, and understanding the thought behind it and how it's created. And I started doing these scent posts and I got some really good feedback, and I just kind of kept it up since.
Yeah. No, the scent is such an amazing place, and that's literally the perfect place to be putting these breakdowns. So it's really cool, and like I said, it just gives so much more to the piece. Like I remember all like basically all my shows when artists show sort of the behind the scenes of a piece, like I stick with it. Like I remember so much about that piece, and it makes it like so much more meaningful. Or even like, I mean, a long time ago, this might be even before I started my show, me, Jim, and a few others, like a handful of us, were watching Joy create a piece live. And like
Oh yeah,
just seeing that, obviously that's like a really intimate process. Like I remember that piece so well, and like everything that we were telling him to like put in the piece. It just definitely makes things
yeah,
more special when you have that with different artists. So those
yeah.
are
Joy's doing such
amazing.
amazing work.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved. I mean, I love what he's doing with that software. It's called what, Adobe Medium, right? I think
Yeah, I
it
don't
used to be
remember
called
the name
something
of it.
else,
I think,
but
oh yeah, I think it is
um,
Medium.
yeah, he's doing stuff. When I tried using it a while back, I had no idea that you could do that kind of stuff. So he's just like blowing my mind every time I see something he releases. I'm like, wow, I can't
Oh
believe
yeah.
that.
No, he always blows my mind. And I it's funny because I was like, I never know if I'm offending him or if I'm complimenting him, but I'm like, his work is so weird, but in such a good way. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
bizarre, but like awesome at the same time. I'm like, can it be both? Yeah. Um,
yeah, no, I definitely, and he's so well branded. I love his house. Whenever he does interviews, he has a whole
oh, yeah.
room
Oh, yeah.
that is decorated with his work. It's amazing.
I know. I'm
It's
just
like a
like,
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
it is. It literally is. And he has all these trinkets and all like his VR headsets painted with the joy face and everything. It's just so cool. That's awesome. Uh, if you, I mean, if you could project or just think about what this year and the next couple of years are going to look like for you, but the NFT space as a whole, could you do that? Or I don't know if I'm thinking too far in advance,
Hmm.
but
Well, I mean, my uh, was it magic ball prediction? I think the future is going to be a mix of VR and AR, and I think you start to see it with stuff like Terra Virtua doing these like fan caves. I think it's
mm,
going to be everyone's going to want to have their own virtual space, and I think a lot of what we create will be decorations for that space. So whether it's art for the walls or furniture or sculptures, I think a lot of what we make is going to become a part of these virtual lives people live. And so I think that's kind of what I see the future as being. I'm not sure exactly how it'll work, but I think that's where the art will really become tangible to a lot of people that don't necessarily understand it at the moment.
yeah, I 100% agree with you on that, especially with all of these things that I'm hearing behind the scenes of different virtual spaces just becoming more and more um, customizable and
Yeah,
easy to access for others. And I mean, it actually is really exciting to be an artist in that world and
yeah,
help others express what they want. So I am 100% in agreement with you on
yeah.
that for the future.
I
Um,
think the real trick will be having an environment that other people can come in and experience with you.
Mm.
And you see the beginnings of that with these metaverses, but really I think like a lot of collecting is the show and tell aspect. And so, you can be in VR and see your work, which is great, but really you want to bring someone over and talk about that art. And I
Yeah.
think that's, when, especially like my Scent articles, a lot of what I think helps with that is that when someone buys a piece of art, they want a story to tell as well. And so they want to be able to say, hey, this is a piece of art and it means this, or it's made like this. And so I think those type of aspects, the stories behind the art, are going to become more and more important because those will be a part of the sharing.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure you find yourself, you project yourself creating in that type of space, I'm assuming, as well.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I can't imagine. It's hard to keep up with all the amazing things that keep happening, but I want to try them all.
It's funny hearing you say it's hard to keep up with because it doesn't sound like you're having a hard time at all keeping up with anything.
Well, I've been at it almost a year now, so I'm starting to get my footing.
Yeah.
But
Do you tell your friends at work about this world, and do they think you're crazy? Do they think it's awesome?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think a lot of them think it's cool, but it's hard to get people involved. That's
Mm.
one of the hardest things is onboarding people. I've been preaching it for a year, and I've only successfully gotten one or two people to actually make a wallet and start making art and submitting. And then some people submit to one website and they don't get in, and then they get discouraged and they quit. And it's like there's a bunch of different avenues to getting involved, but I think most people struggle with the marketing aspect of it. I think a lot
Mm.
of artists struggle in general with that aspect. That's why galleries have flourished for so many years, is because they do that aspect.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to crypto art, you have to be equal parts marketer, and most artists are kind of shy about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's taken me time to get used to it, and I still struggle to like, whether how things are presented, and whether it's expensive or cheap, or whether it's valued correctly, like I was saying earlier. I
Yeah.
think that's something most artists struggle with, and that's where agents and galleries kind of took the reins before, and now crypto art has given us the ability to be those things, which is amazing, but it comes with a learning curve as well.
I totally agree. And as you were saying that, it is so interesting because crypto does, like you said, give us a chance to sort of cut out the middleman and go directly to our collectors, which is really special because it gives you such a different relationship with collectors for sure, and with your community. So even just beyond collectors, people that just follow you on Twitter and like every single post you post, or
Yeah.
show up to the shows or whatever they do. So it does give this special connection that where you're not just connecting with only people who buy your work, but people who just enjoy your work, that I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate. But that is interesting. Just what you're saying with like the valuation, because you're right, like galleries used to take that on, and that used to be something that obviously they take a large cut of that, but they
Oh yeah.
price as high as they possibly can in some
Yeah.
cases. So I would love, I mean, I don't know, it's hard because I don't know if there's necessarily someone that can come in and teach that, because it's so different to every circumstance, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? um, but it is interesting, just like I guess experimenting with it and seeing what works for you and your community. And also, in my opinion, like I think just staying at it and continuing to do your work and be genuine and authentic with your art and also with your community, and setting expectations and everything goes a long way. And
Definitely.
year on, and next month, and all of these things add up and get that respect in other people's minds that help sort of formulate that in the end. At least I'd like to think so. But yeah, it
Definitely.
definitely is a difficult thing. I agree with you.
Yeah. And that's what, you see sites like Known Origin, Super Rare have their editorial sections and their promotional teams, and they're kind of
Hmm.
doing the legwork in that sense to help these artists kind of break through the noise, because Twitter can be a whole lot of noise, especially when it comes to crypto Twitter, because it's just, it's a mix of both art and also just tons of price speculation about tokens. And so it's like trying to connect with someone and get them to step away from Twitter for a second and visit your crypto voxel build is the difference between, someone that might buy your work or someone who's just going to keep scrolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting thought, and I think people just being more involved with these different communities, like you're doing, is such a great way to at least try to work on that, getting a better footing on what that means. But yeah, no, that's interesting to bring up because I'm sure a lot of other artists have such similar feelings and probably don't talk to each other about it, or at least not in a broad scale where they talk to multiple people and get different opinions. But I think that's also something that me as an artist, I feel like I'm bad at and I want to get better at is getting feedback from other artists. So not even
Yeah.
necessarily on like maybe it is on an art piece, but not necessarily on that, but getting and giving feedback on the business side of it, the marketing side of it, the price side of it, whatever that is. I think that's interesting, and that artists do need to get together and behind each other more in helping have that conversation, so we all become more knowledgeable because it's helpful for everyone in the end.
Definitely. Yeah. I think, it's all about, we're all going to grow as a community. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think as long as, everyone's feeling good about it, this will just keep growing. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that join and they reach out to me, or, they're in the Discords asking questions. And, I think more people need to be comfortable doing that because everyone's really helpful. I think when I started, I was talking to the super rare people and I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. And they're like, nobody does. That's okay. We're all figuring it out together. And I was like, that's great. And so like just hearing that was something I needed to hear, because otherwise you just get so self-conscious and you're worried that like you don't know the secrets. But there is no secrets. It's
Mm.
everyone's just kind of figuring it out and having fun. And if it clicks, it works. And if it doesn't, you just keep making stuff, and it'll, that's the fun part about it. It's a learning journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, overall in the space, I mean, there was this weird turning point recently where it feels a lot different than it felt like when you first joined last year. So, I mean, in my opinion, I think I think the small crowd of like the small community, obviously we're still going to have that, but that's sort of over, and there's like these huge waves crashing in of all of these artists, amazing talent flooding in. um, do you have any, I guess, advice for other artists that are listening to this and watching these shows of how to stick with it and stay motivated when you see, I mean, we see a ton of like next biggest sale, and
Yeah.
like you said, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you have any motivation for other artists that are, starting or maybe have been here for a while and maybe just aren't getting the same traction that they'd like to see?
Yeah, I think, in terms of getting traction, it's a part of it comes back to that idea of connection and community. I think, go to the work in progress meetups, connect with artists on Discord, figure out what trends, you can follow trends to an extent, but you can, and it's probably detrimental to mimic them, but you can kind of see what is selling and what isn't selling, and you can kind of reconfigure what you make. So it's like if MP4s with audio are doing better than GIFs, et cetera. And so I think there's a bit of that. And then, yeah, if it's always worth reaching out, there's a tough balance of, shilling art versus like organic marketing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something everyone struggles with, but you have to market to an extent. Otherwise, no one's going to find your work. And so I think, putting your stuff on Twitter is one thing, but getting involved in communities on Discord with, Token Smart or the various platforms, you can talk to different artists and learn from them. I think it was one of the Nifty Gateway guys, maybe it was Duncan, put out a list of like advice a couple weeks ago or earlier this week for new artists, and it was excellent advice. It was just about connect with a small group of people. I've noticed as it's grown, this community has kind of fallen into tinier cliques in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to find a clique of people that are going to give you feedback. And, you know, I think most people are willing to accept you into their groups, because why not? It's all fun.
Especially in crypto, because like everyone's was sort of an outcast or a weirdo that was
Yeah.
into the crypto scene. So I completely agree with that as well. If you guys have more questions in the chat, feel free and pop them in. I am soon going to pull up the closing questions to ask you, but before we do that, I just want to know if there's anything in your tabs that we didn't go through yet and that you want to show, or if there's anything else you want to talk about. I mean, you have so much coming up. You guys definitely make sure you're following Bryan. I put all his links in the YouTube description box. And like and subscribe to my channel. Just saying that before you all drop off on the end. Yeah, is there anything that we didn't go over of all the stuff that you have coming up, or even like past stuff that you love?
Well, I can give you a sneak peek of something I'm working on right now.
Ooh, I love sneak peeks.
I'm working with this artist named Karin 4D, and he has a GAN AI that takes art and can create different surrealism art and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And so I gave him 500 pieces of my art, frames and pictures, and we let the AI give me art that is based on my art.
Oh, cool. Okay, I can't wait to see this.
And then I took it and I'm adding animation on top of it.
Oh, cool. So it even made the piece on the right?
Yeah. So I added the flower aspect, the lines and the dots, but the base of them was all done by AI. And so that's a fun project I've been kind of toying around with as a way, you know, kind of falling into another aspect of what the generative art aspects are going on with this community.
What I especially loved about what you just showed me, so like sometimes when people just put stuff through a GAN, I'm just like, okay. But I love that you took these pieces and you were like, what does this look like to me? Okay, this is what it looks like to me. This is what I'm going to add to it. So adding the waves, like taking that, okay, this looks like a river and mountains and sand, you know, okay, I'm going to add the waves. There's even like the reflection of like the sun setting, add the birds and like kind of carry that reflection through everything. I mean, such a beautiful job. And then on the right, I mean, that flower with like the glowing pollen in the middle just looks so cool. I love that you put your own spin on work that was literally created from your work.
Like, it's like a real circle. I mean? Yeah, it started with me and then went through a machine and then came back to me and then I added it again.
That was really cool. I think that's special. That's special than just like I said, sometimes when I see work that's put through again, I'm like, okay. But like I think it's special that you came back to it and you put care and love to it after it spit something out for you.
Yeah. So that's I think really cool. You know, I think we have maybe one more in the mix and then we'll figure out a way to release it. That's just something I've been working on over the past few weeks, and I thought, you know, it's just seeing the results. You know, it takes a certain amount of time, then you start to see results, and you stare at it, and it's kind of like a Rorschach test where you're like, what do I see in this?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you did a beautiful job because I knew exactly what both were, which is not easy to do with those AI GAN things. So that was pretty cool. Wrong Bedroom asked, what sales method do you guys prefer? List price, reserve, auction, open bidding? Something I'm battling with at the moment.
Well, personally, I really love that sales methods are becoming their own art form, especially on sites like Nifty Gateway. You're seeing like all sorts of different ways of dropping art and figuring out ways of releasing it. And I think the open bidding, or not open bidding, the open edition aspect is such a clever way to get everyone to have a chance to own big names. And I think that that's something that I find to be pretty exciting at the moment. I also really like their aspect of using packs, where you buy one and you get a random one out of the pack, which kind of falls into the art blocks idea to an extent. but that has more of like a gambling
Mm-hmm.
percentage. But I
Like
think
trading
that's a pretty
cards.
fun way of releasing art. In terms of the auctions, my default was kind of doing this semi-coldy method at first, where I would release it and sell it after the first bid or within 24 hours. But in retrospect, it probably wasn't really doing it correctly. His method like resets the clock
Mm,
after each time, and
okay.
I was just only doing it for 24 hours, which was good for selling stuff quickly. But I probably would have been better off waiting it out longer. But I do like the new super rare auction system, but I haven't fully executed one yet.
Yeah. It's such a weird it is there's like a you have to find a nice balance. Like you don't, in my opinion, like auctioning off every single item and trying to get like the high ticket price can sometimes seem a little daunting for newer collectors. But some people it works for them and that's what they do, which is awesome. But I totally agree with you that the sales method is sort of becoming part of the art as well, especially with those platforms doing that. I typically, um, I don't know if I think you asked both of us, so I'll just tell you what I do.
Yeah.
But it does work, different things work for different people. Typically, I have a set sale price, but I do editions. So I do editions of 21, but I keep one, so I only sell 20. And I normally have a set price, and then I sell my pieces through this. I should actually say is a recommendation for any artist or creator. Um, get yourself a newsletter and keep your audience up to date with what you're doing. I'm terrible at sending out newsletters, but people know when they get a newsletter, like there's an art piece dropping. Like that's the only
Yeah.
time I send out newsletters. Like there's one dropping, and I'm very lucky and fortunate that typically I sell my pieces on reserve through a newsletter, and they're all
That's
at
awesome.
set prices. But I also have always done it where um, I try to sell items that I think are below what the actual market value is so that people can. I know people are like, oh, I hate flippers, but I don't mind when people trade my work. I think it's pretty cool to see what the secondary market starts to price things at, especially with places. I do everything on OpenSea. So, with places like OpenSea and other platforms as well that allow you to set royalties, because I think, I've had many collectors that come back and buy my work time and time again because they've actually made enough money on the last piece that they sold on secondary market to get three new ones.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cool to see, and I don't mind it because I have people coming back and they do really care about the work. So that's typically how I do mine, but it's different for everyone for sure. And sometimes you just have to play around and see what works. Um,
Yeah. That's a smart way of going about it. I've heard a few artists mention having an email list,
mm.
and it's something I've considered, but haven't really dove into because it makes me worried about having to like write a newsletter. But
Well, for you, I mean, you wouldn't even have to write. I mean, when I say newsletter, Mike, they're not really newsletters. It's like, hey, this is dropping. Here's the piece, and here's the meaning. So
oh,
for
okay.
you, you do like that's literally all I put. I can show you guys. Like, I'll post it if you want. But you can do a newsletter where really you're sending out, hey, here's a new work, and here you already write these for sent. Here's the
Yeah.
step by step process. I would love to get that in an email because I'm not always on Twitter. I'm not always looking at, all these different pockets of sent when I'm really busy, but I look at my email every day. So
Yeah.
when you get an email of like, oh, Bryan just released this piece, and maybe I'm not in the market to buy it right now, but I can see your process, it makes me think about you and it makes me think about how much work you put in that piece. And whenever I see it, I'm going to think about that process I just read through. So I think it does give something. Um, People who are signed up for your newsletter obviously care about your work and are excited about you. So regardless of whether they collect it or not, or just like to look at it, it does bring value to your community, in my opinion. And I recommend anyone to try to do something like that, or Discord if that's better for them than a newsletter or something like that. I think it adds some value. At
For
least
sure.
I've
And you're,
experienced it.
in terms of the community, you're the first artist I saw that had their own Discord, and that's something that I think is very forward thinking as well. Because in the end, these social media platforms will evolve and change over time, but these, you know, the email list, that's something that will always connect.
Yeah. And you can also, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, and I have some stuff coming up, but like you can reward those people who follow you on Discord and your newsletters in different ways too. So it's a cool thing to tap into if you guys are interested in that. And if anyone has questions on it, please let me know for sure. Um, but okay, cool. Let me start asking you some of these weird closing questions. I'm sure you've
Okay.
seen them. They're not really relevant to anything besides the last two, but they're kind of fun and more of like the get to know you questions. But okay. Um, a skill you wish you had.
Hmm. Skill I wish I had. I wish I was a better musician. My father's a drummer, and my whole family's musicians, and they're all very talented.
Oh,
And
cool.
I took that side of the brain, but I used it differently. But
Mm,
I have like a guitar on the other side of the room, and I always try to learn it, or I would love to learn drums, but
uh-huh.
I I got distracted with art.
Yeah.
But I wish I could jam out with my dad, you know?
Yeah. I'm sure I don't know. I guess you just need a few more hours in the day to be able to practice
Yeah.
since you have so much other. Oh, Sam Breckman said,
Thanks, Sam.
"Brian, I'll help you become a better musician." That's a good offer.
Yeah,
Sam's a pretty
Sam's
talented
talented.
dude, so that's an awesome offer. Your favorite animal?
Cats. I have two cats.
Me
They're the
too.
best.
What are your cat's names?
Bacon and
Oh
Butters.
my gosh, I love that. Bacon and Butters. Did you get them at the same time or different times?
No, we've had Bacon for a while, and we just got Butters in October. He's still a kitten.
Oh,
If he popped in, I'd show him, but he's a very cute little kitten.
oh, that's awesome. I got two kittens like 7 months ago, and now they look like full-grown cats, and I'm obsessed with them.
Happens
Um,
quickly.
yeah, exactly. Uh, if you had to only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Probably Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I'm a big fan of that one.
Okay, that's
I think
funny.
Tim Burton was a big early influence, and so is Pee Wee. You know, Pee Wee's Playhouse is incredible visually. And I think just the that movie is just pretty perfect. It has every genre in
Yeah.
it.
All right, that's a good answer. You also referenced it earlier, so
Yeah, I'm a
that's
big Pee Wee
cool.
fan.
Yeah. Um, your favorite place on Earth, near or far?
Ooh. Hmm. I like Central Park. I think that's pretty. I feel like I enjoy getting lost in Central Park,
That's a good
but I don't
answer.
go there often enough.
Yeah, especially probably now.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, but
but
I've lived in New York for like I don't know 12 years now, and I feel like I still haven't seen like everything in Central Park. It's just so vast and so many different paths.
oh yeah, my first time in Central Park was like a year and a half ago or something when I went to New York. Because normally I just go there for work, so I'm very like
Yeah,
in and out, only at the conference or hotel or bar maybe. But Central Park is beautiful. Oh my gosh, like there's just so much to see and so many, not even just the park itself, but then also all of the people in it and the vendors and the art.
yeah,
It's
and
it's
it's
so
next to
cool.
two of the best museums in the city.
Yeah.
You got amazing art on one end and dinosaurs on the other. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome choice. What was cool when you were young but is not cool now?
Uh, Pogs, though technically that we could see NFT Pogs make a comeback.
What are pogs?
They were these little cardboard discs that you would stack up, and then you'd take a really heavy one and you'd hit them and they'd flip over, and that was the game. It was like the lamest thing, but like they were all the rage when we were like when I was in grade school, and then they've just completely disappeared. Understandably, they weren't
Okay.
very fun. They
Yeah. Hubber
they're not
Snacks
cool at
said
all
they
anymore.
already exist. Do they already exist on NFTs, you mean, Hubber Snacks?
Uh, Cogs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Also, I thought you
oh,
said pogs at first, but
They
You
are
correct me,
Pogs, yeah.
Pogs.
P. These
Oh,
must be the
Pogs?
offshoots. Let me see if I can pull
Oh,
up a.
oh, on Wax blockchain. Oh, got it, got it. Huh.
Here,
Weird.
they were like they were used by companies to like market whatever they wanted. So they were just circles with images.
See, you know what those look like to me? Those look like pop sockets. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah,
back
yeah,
of the phone.
they're exactly like pop sockets.
That's so
Maybe
funny.
pop sockets are by the same company that made Pogs, and they figured out a new way.
Yeah, I've never seen them before. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. It was cool now, or cool when you were young, but isn't necessarily cool now. Okay, what would you want to live forever?
Uh, sure. Why not? I want to see what happens.
Yeah, all right, I do too. Normally, people say no, and have this whole
Well, it depends
reason,
if
which I
I age,
understand.
if
No,
I'm
no,
a
you.
1,000 years old, I
Well,
would
you keep your
not be able
health.
to really enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
If
you
I
keep
kept
your
my health,
health.
yeah, sure.
Okay. Um, Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Uh, I like Ethereum. I think that's been my entry point, and I've always enjoyed it. Uh, I think Bitcoin is cool, but Ethereum just does so much more.
Yeah, they're cool for different reasons. That's for sure.
Yeah.
If you could have, or oh, sorry, first your favorite NFT that you own.
Ooh, well, I can pull it up.
Okay, you
Jim,
knew
who
right
might still be
away.
in the chat, gifted me the NFT that like made me excited and join, which is this Killer Acid one.
Cool. That's so cool that Jim gifted
And
you
so
that.
yeah, it was amazing. And yeah, so it's like this was the piece that like inspired me to join, and now I get to have it. And so of
Wow.
course it's going to be my favorite. I'm going to hold it forever.
I love that. It's so cool. Jim really has a unique way of sharing art with other people and even like, when he's like having a Twitter argument with someone and like sending them art and they send him art or like not even an argument but like some funny like banter and then they send each other like gifts and it's just such a cool way to have this public wallet address, like who is who. You can send anyone anything you want, like whether they want it or
That's
not,
true. Yeah.
which is a little weird
Yeah.
sometimes.
And then they have to pay to burn it if they don't want
Exactly.
it.
But it
It's a
is
real
kind of
prank.
cool. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
No, Jim was a great early supporter, and him and Whale Shark were both great early supporters that helped me understand the scene in a lot of different ways that gave me a head start that I needed.
Yeah, both very knowledgeable, so great to learn
Yeah.
from, that's for sure.
Yeah. Luckily, most of my early collectors are like crushing it right now. Like
Yeah.
Poly Market and all sorts of things. So it's amazing to watch like not just the artists grow, but the collectors grow as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really good point. Um, okay, last question. If you could have one NFT that you wanted that's already minted for free, which would it be?
Well, see, I answered that question with this peace sign, and I got it. So I've
Well,
been I've been blessed.
okay.
But I don't know. Yeah, I think one that I would want.
And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be art if you don't want it to be. It could be virtual land. It could be
Virtual land.
a
It would be cool to have
anything.
a spot right in the middle of crypto voxels.
Right in the middle, right when you land,
Yeah,
where you land in
yeah,
Origin City.
yeah. That'd be cool.
That would be a
I
really
think
cool
that's
piece.
that's going to be interesting. Is like the walking tours. Like
Hmm.
where do people start their walking tours? Where's that first spot you start in the world?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be a good piece for sure. I think Ben owns that one right away, but the one right next to it, uh, does I always see Devil's Work up there. I don't know if he owns it. There's a lot of people in there that own it right in the center of Origin, which is pretty cool. But
Yeah.
awesome, that's a good answer. Well, thank you. This was so cool. I love to just get to know you more and through your art, and then also um, about your musical background too. Like I didn't even know that before, so that's or pretty cool that your family are, musicians and that you want to get better at that. And Sam Bruckman is going to help you with that, which is pretty cool. But I just loved hearing everything about your work and your process. And seriously, like I said, like a huge congrats to how much you have brought to this space and also grown yourself. I think
Oh, thank
you
you.
are such an amazing, um, positive light through your art itself, and then also getting to know you just on the stream. I really appreciate that, and I think that it's great for this space.
It's
And
awesome.
yeah, I'm just super excited to see all the things you have coming up because I'm blown away by all the different areas you're touching. But I think it all looks really amazing.
Well, I'm following in your footsteps, you know.
Uh,
It's been a blast to watch and learn from you and everybody that's been on this show. So it's, you know, thank you so much for all those kind words. I really appreciate it.
yeah, of course. And everyone, make sure you follow and do all the things that you need to do for Bryan. His links are in the YouTube chat, but I'm sure you know how to find him as well. So check
Yeah,
that
it's up in,
out.
I think it's in the corner up here. That's my
Oh yeah,
Twitter.
perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I didn't even notice that. I keep noticing your awesome like logo, but I didn't even notice the words there. But that's because I'm looking at your face the whole time.
It's okay.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we will see you on the next one. I will put out a tweet with the all the shows coming up for the rest of January. Oh, cool. I love that. That's awesome.
I should have been switching my backgrounds. I also have a
Yeah,
Sarah
you should
Zucker
have.
one.
Wait, who did that one? Oh,
The
Sarah
Sarah Show.
Zucker. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah,
she has
yeah.
a thing where you can create your own Zoom backgrounds. It's really cool.
Oh,
Shout out to
that's really
Sarah.
cool. How'd you do that? What
It's
do you mean you
on, I
create
think,
your own?
Giphy. She
Oh,
has a thing where
cool.
you can use her gifs to create your own background.
Shout out to her. I should have her on the show for sure. I need to write all these down. Um, awesome. Thank you guys seriously so much for watching and just giving feedback and all these comments in the chat. It really always makes the show better when I can ask questions live from you guys and get everything answered and just see you chime in. So I appreciate all of you very much, and I appreciate all of you that are going to be watching after this because it's not in your time zone. So thank you so much. Also, I want to give a little special shout out to, and I hope my computer runs fast enough that I can pull up the username. But Greenwich, is that the username? I just want to give a special shout out here really quick. It'll just take me 1 second because I'll tell you why. Uh, and I don't know who you are on Twitter. If you have a Twitter, DM me. Green Grinch right now. Okay, Green Grinch, who on every single one of my behind the art shows watches it back and within like hours of me posting it and does an outline of the entire show with timestamps of what we talk about
Oh,
when and
wow.
where. You are awesome, and I like deeply appreciate you doing that because it helps other people like jump to where they want to go. So thank you. And if you have a Twitter, please DM me on Twitter so I can know who you are. But yeah, huge shout out to you. And I mean, I'm subscribed to you on YouTube, and I don't think you've ever posted anything, but I really appreciate you. So thanks for doing that. You rock. Um, but yes, we'll see you on the next one, guys. And thank you again, Bryan.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for everybody in the chat.
All right. See you guys later.